Welcome to Newsworthy Stories with Jacqueline Jimenez. Today's show was actually born out of a LinkedIn post that I saw. It was posted by Grant McGuy, and you may know him because he has a very popular show called Follow the Brand. And I wanted to talk to him about what he learned at this health conference. And so I invited him on along with Dr. Kadisha Nicholas. And she is from the National Association of Health Services Executives, and she is the president. And actually, Grant was the former president at one time. So I've got, the best people you could talk to about what this conference was about. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, the pleasure is all ours. And to be clear, we are the presidents of the Florida
chapter.
Oh, come on. You're the presidents of all of them. What do you mean just the Florida? No, I'm just kidding. Give you a promotion. Okay. But yes, thank you so much. It is the Florida chapter. But Dr. Kadisha, can you tell me, first of all, what is the National Association of Health Services Executives? It's a long title.
It's a long title, so don't worry if you trip yourself up over it. We do it all the time, and we've been members for a very, very, very long time. But the National Association of Health Services Executives, or NAHSE, as we like to refer to it, is an organization that started over 50 years ago with the sole purpose of promoting the advancement of Black leaders in healthcare. The organization was founded during a time where Black leaders could not access similar organizations like ACHE. And so our founding fathers took it upon themselves to create a space where Black leaders can come together, fellowship, network, and learn from one another. Since then, we have about 35 plus chapters and over 3,000 individuals a part of the organization, and that is nationwide. At a chapter level, we host educational sessions, networking mixers, and we even tailor our events so that students to senior level leaders can gain something from it. We are creating a space where we all can come together with individuals that look like us, have similar experiences to us, and create a space where we feel like we are learning from one another and we feel comfortable in sharing those experiences. So I have been the president of the Florida chapter for 1 year. I have one more year to go. Grant was the president. Actually, Grant got me really signed up to be a part of NAHSE and be an active member. And I remember meeting him and his energy was just so great. I was just like, okay, yes, I have to do it. And that was in, I want to say 2018 or so. And since then, I've been a part of the organization. It has helped my career tremendously. And I've had the pleasure of just connecting with awesome leaders across the nation. And so I'm very proud to have, or honored to have the opportunity to be here with you today to talk about NAHSE and share what we do with everyone on your platform.
I do want to ask you one other question, though, before I start talking to Grant about what he learned at the conference, and that is, what is your connection to healthcare?
Yeah, so I serve as a director of operations for the OB service line, or OBGYN service line at Team Health. So essentially the organization helps staff hospitals that are understaffed or they need providers to fill certain programs that they have in their hospitals. So I work with clinical leaders across the state of Florida at the moment to ensure that the hospitals we are contracted with have enough physicians in their OBGYN programs.
All right. Thank you. Okay, Grant, take it away, because, it really was an interesting post. And I don't usually start a show based on a post, but, you have your energy and, you're passionate about what you learned. And I'd like to hear more about what it was you learned at this education conference.
Well,
just a week ago.
Well, first, thank you for having me back on your show. You have a weekly show. It is wonderful. I always get a lot of good energy for what you bring to the table and all the interesting guests. So thank you very much. And when you saw that particular post, now I took that from the first night and we were talking about health equity. Health equity is huge. I mean, really the organization is based on the equitable care that we're trying to lower that gap between accessibility to care and access to care, right? And then there's been historical disparities in healthcare delivery. And we had industry leaders talking about this at a high level. One thing about the organization is that we bring together health executives from across the nation that are operating at some of the largest institutions in America. We're talking about I think the first, second, third, and fourth largest institutions that you can think of, like Common Spirit, Kaiser Permanente, Ascension. You can go into some others, and I can't even think of them right now, like Henry Health or the Ford uh, in Detroit. But there's a lot of others as well. But the whole point is that we bring together leaders to talk about these things and how can we move the needle forward. That particular session talked about the disparities over the last 50 plus years. And if we don't get the information correct, the data that's going in now into our AI machines, or machine learning, or we call artificial intelligence, we're going to have even greater disparity, not less. It's going to be greater because it doesn't have all the information. And if you don't have all the information, you're making decisions based upon that, and those decisions will be short-sighted. This is very, very important. We need to get a handle on this now before it actually grows even further and divides us even more as we move forward. So that was what the essential nature of that post was about. It was a call to action for everybody to get involved and understand digital data, what that's all about. And if you don't have true representation of the entire diversity of our vast population, you're going to get outcomes that are skewed toward or to numbers that aren't representative of the truth.
So, based on that, and I have some experience in this, and so that's one of the reasons why it caught my attention. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But can you tell a story, either one of you, that stood out to you at this conference that was shared that talks about something specific? That there was a story or a statistic that stood out to you that just you really weren't expecting to hear?
I'll defer to Kadisha.
Well, I may have to pass it back to you, but I do have a story that was shared by one of our former presidents, Kim Griffin Hunter, who is a partner at Deloitte, which is one of the largest consulting agencies or consulting firms in the nation. And she shared her journey and how health equity played a huge part in her journey. And it was more so from the leadership side as opposed to the access of care side. Now, we all know that Black leaders are underrepresented in C-suite level spaces. And so she talked about her climb up the corporate mountain, as we would like to call it now, and how equity played a huge role in that. And the work that she had to put into getting where she is today. And now that she's at a point where she's climbed the top of that mountain, she feels like she can not only give back to others, but she can kind of sit back, where a lot of us who are still at the bottom of that mountain are doing a lot of work or trying to understand how do we get there. And so her, just when Kim created that space to kind of share tips and tools on, what she did and the steps she took and the mindset that she had to get where she was, it was really motivating for a lot of the leaders in the room who understand that equity in our careers and on that journey may not be something that's always talked about, but we as Black and Brown people experience inequity the most. And so having tips and tools to help us navigate that space is just phenomenal. And having someone like Kim, if you ever meet her, is a ball of energy. Having someone like Kim just share the raw and honest truth about how you get it done just really helped people like myself who were like still trying to make it there.
What
And I want to,
what are the
what?
stumbling blocks that you're talking about? Like some of the stumbling blocks that you're speaking of, is there something you can share that I can visualize?
Yeah. So we all hear that, Black people have to work twice as hard to get just as far as their white counterparts. So that was one of the biggest parts of her conversation, like the work, the extra work that you have to put in just to get to a decent or I want to say a bare minimum standing in your career. And then understanding that you have to have a really good mental space in order to just navigate it all. And then talking about the importance that community plays in all of this. She shared some of the songs and mottos mantras that she would have for herself just to make it through the week or just to make it through, the day. And so a lot of those things we kind of have to sit back, reflect on and say, okay, hey, maybe that's something I need to do. What does my community look like? Do I have a support system? Am I working twice as hard to get where I want? And is this what I want to do for this career? And then some of those things kind of help you navigate the journey.
Well, I'm going to ask another question, and Grant, you can jump in. I wasn't sure. Like I said, this show was based on a post, so I really wasn't sure which way
No,
the
no,
show
no.
would
I
go.
like the free flow. Let's go.
And I'll tell you what is where I'm thinking, and that is, and I'll bring, like I said, I have somebody in mind when I saw that post. But can you tell me what is it that people should know about the healthcare? I understand that, because yes, going up that ladder, I think in healthcare is in any industry, but healthcare definitely. Um, but is it the titles? Is it the pay? Is it um, the honors? Where are we? What are we missing? Because I mean, I know just, some people ask me all the time, why do you have these organizations that will award, Black honorees? I'm like, well, because they're not being honored in their industries. And so I'm asking because I want to understand that where are we lacking when it comes to equity?
Mhm.
And how do you feel about it?
If you
You
don't mind,
know,
I'd like to jump in on that one.
please, sir.
In healthcare, you have to put this in the historical context. And healthcare in this country, going back for the Black experience, let's just say like that, is, for the last 150 years, we have been separated in healthcare delivery, institutionalized. Like you could not get care. One of the reasons we even have federally qualified health centers, to get back to, we have a story. This is a true story, that when they had migrant workers in South Dade County, and they would do work, and then they would get hurt, and then they would have to transport them. They would not transport them to the nearest hospital. They'd have to transport them to a hospital all the way to Jackson, which is almost toward downtown, just because they would not take Black or brown people into the hospital. This was historical. This did not change until the 1960s. So we're not talking 100 some odd years ago. This is in my own lifetime. This is what gave life to the federally qualified health centers. Okay, so that's just when one generation. So what we're trying to do as Black and brown people is to catch up, because we have to overcome some of this systemic racism that has always been there. Whether you get into the experiments with people or clinical trials, you get into just about everything. And then there used to be Black hospitals up until civil rights, and then they had to integrate. Well, when they did that, most of the Black hospitals went out of business, so there weren't any Black hospitals. So now those Black physicians, those Black administrators, clinicians, and whatnot had to now make their way into the mainstream of the healthcare system, and it has been a journey in doing that, because of different attitudes and whatnot. So because what Khadijah said, the American Medical Association, well, Black people weren't allowed into their association. So that gives rise to like the National American Medical Association, or if you look at our own historical facts, the National Association of Health Service Executives goes all the way back over 100 years ago because of systemic racism. And so unfortunately or fortunately, this is the root cause of why these organizations have existed. And here we are today. So, well, why do they need to exist now? Here we are in an era where you can't say DE and I, the diversity, equity, inclusion. Why is that all of a sudden a bad word? You have to say health equity, right? And say, well, what's the difference? The whole point is we're trying to get our fair shake, right? And so when you start looking at the numbers, like, well, we're 13, 14, 15% of the population, yet we're not represented equitably in those systems. We're probably only 5% or even less than, and women would make up maybe 70% of the workforce in healthcare systems. And you got maybe 8% of women leading healthcare systems. Like, whoa, well, these numbers don't really add up. So you have to have specialized groups to actually.
Well, I was going to say there's a lot of Black people in healthcare today, but it's the positions that they're in. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring up my little happy story that made me, really dive into this, because I think Grant is familiar with Robert Chelsea, but Dr. Khadijah Nicholas, you might not be. And Robert Chelsea, I have the honor of covering him and getting him news coverage, but he is the first African American to ever receive a full face transplant. And his doctor, he had a lot of issues because there's not enough Black donors, and so now he is on a mission to really share the need for Black donors because of the research. And that's where I was really getting at, is the research. When he has an infection, all the research is based on people who are not, African American. And so when he has a problem, they can't, all the signs are like, redness and stuff, and you can't see it on him. And so he's actually had a lot of problems in that manner. And so when I saw that, and he's really fighting for equitable health and more education, so people understand that we need more research. We need more Blacks to participate in research, and not think that you're a, mouse or animal, in the process, but to actually understand that it's going to benefit all of us as a whole, because we will actually have more accurate data. We can actually have more researchers in that area of equity. I'm not really good at those words. These words don't flow off my lips. I don't say them all the time. So it's just, to me, that was something that caught my attention, is your post, is because of these things that still exist. And I want people to understand that in healthcare, people don't go to the doctor still. There's still so many stigmas about healthcare, and they're afraid. Like you said, when they integrated the hospitals, well, what kind of care were they getting? And those kinds of things that most people think, well, when you go to the hospital, you go to the doctor, you get help, but it's different. And there's this fear. Some of it's fear, and some of it's real. So can you guys talk, any of you, talk on that at all?
Yeah, I would like to say that there is always, unfortunately, going to be a challenge in trying to shift the narrative a bit and getting more Black and brown people into research, or participating in research, excuse me, because of the historical context. I don't need to bring up Tuskegee and all of those great things. We already know that. But that is where the mistrust in the medical and health system begins. Those stories pass on from generation to generation. I'm talking about it now, so people are going to research it if they don't know. It never ends. And then you couple that with situations going into your doctor where you feel unheard or you feel dismissed. And that's the real lived experiences that a lot of Black and Brown people have. And so it makes it very difficult for us to trust that if I'm going to participate in research, that it is going to be of benefit to me. And so we as educated leaders who know that there is a benefit, have to continuously have the conversation and not forget how important this conversation is that we need to educate our people to say, okay, times have changed, and this is how it is going to benefit you. And I think once we we're going to have this conversation forever. But if we continuously drag it on, I have hope that, we will begin to move the dial just a bit, but it's going to take some work because mistrust does not go away easily. And to answer your question earlier on, when it comes to health equity, I think all Black and Brown people are upset that it exists. We are frustrated that, one, we have to do this work to navigate the health system, whether we're navigating it from the corporate side or from the patient side. It's always a challenge. We hate to have to do it. Why should we do it? Why do we not have access access to resources like our counterparts do? There's always going to be that level of frustration. And I love that NAHSC focused their conference on a topic that continuously plagues the Black and Brown communities. What I'd like to see going forward is that our allies, the ones who are really making those decisions, participate in those conversations. They hear our side of the story and they're able to go back to their organizations and say, this is the change we need to make for the people that we're serving. It's great that we're all coming together, but when we look at the stats, Black leaders only make up about 2 to 3% of the C-suite. So are we really taking this information back and making a lot of change? We'll probably see a little bit, but the amount of change we need to see needs to have our allies and that allyship there so that they can go back and disseminate what they've learned as well.
Okay, so I'm going to put my 2 cents in on that.
Yeah.
And that is when your allies come forward and say, hey, I want to make a change in this area. I want to learn and understand where you are. Then you do a story about it. Okay? Because if you don't show that there are people making a difference, and otherwise we'll keep coming back to the same conversation. And you have to show the progress, or otherwise people don't want to be involved. They want to be involved in progress. They want to be in, they don't want to be in the same place. And so it's a benefit for everybody involved, because now we're showing the collaboration. We're showing that we're not separated. We're trying to grow. And so whenever that group, and I will challenge you all, if you're listening, to come together. If you're listening and you're like, you know what, we have a group, we have an organization. I would love our organization to partner with your organization so we could hear each other out, and then maybe come together and show, collaborate and see how we can make a change, even if it's one change. Decide a change that you want to make together and then do it, but let the media know, and we can always, that's a story I will cover, for sure, but more so the media will cover, the television media will cover, because it is an area that we need growth, and it's not just in healthcare, but healthcare just affects everybody. Everybody has health, good or bad.
I can help to tie that all together, because it comes back to a problem that we have as a nation, and that is cultural competence. Are we really culturally competent, or do we practice cultural competence? Here's the reality of the situation. When I graduated high school, America as a whole was about 80% Caucasian. And so 80% Caucasian had a real dominant hold on the population. When my child graduated high school in the early 2000s, that population had dwindled to only 60%. So only 60% is what you would call the Caucasian population in the United States. And then the rest of that, still the African American population is really about the same. But then you had just an influx of Hispanic and Latinos, and plus we call other from other parts of the world that have come into our U.S. population. So the mindset has to shift from more of a super majority to more of a minority majority type of situation. And that's what the situation is as the populations that are coming into being seated now, your millennials and your Gen X's and that type of thing. It's a different world. It is not the same world. So all of the different studies and research that was done when there was just a majority population of 80%. Like, hey, why am I going to pay attention to such a smaller market? Well, that market is no longer small. And you have to pay attention to it. And you've got to be culturally competent about what you're doing to make sure that it's inclusive of everybody within the culture. Because if one person gets sick, as we have seen with COVID, and you saw the outcomes that came out of COVID, and most of the Black and brown people suffered even more, that's telling you something, because that affects the entire population. So God forbid something else happens as we go forward in time, and we did not do research and we did not look at different gene pools, genomics, and things of that nature. Precision medicine and new technologies that are coming out now can actually help us. But we've got to change our mindsets, and we've got to be intentional about becoming culturally competent.
I agree with that. Yeah. No, very good. Very good. And, I just know that, and also the educating on the different careers in this area. Research is just one of those that stand out to me that people don't necessarily go, hey, go in and be a researcher. But without it, we wouldn't have everything else in medicine. Research is it's one of the top things that you can do. And again, there's that accreditation, right? You can research, but will your name be on it? But I think you must start somewhere. Collaboration to me is the number one way to do that. We at the, I know it's the Akaba World Network, I got to throw it in there, collaboration, connection, build community, got to get it in there.
Yeah.
But listen, it works. It works. And it's powerful when you do it together. So we didn't go to your website, like I had thought we would do, but there's more to the National Association of Health Services Executives website. There's partnerships, there's memberships. And I would imagine that your memberships are not based on what you look like. So if you want to be a part of the solution, be a part of the organization and get involved.
One thing, Jackie, before you close, there's one part you almost forgot. We are the award-winning NAHSE Florida chapter, and Ms. Khadijah could tell you a little bit more about what we just won.
Yes, and you know what? You're right. Let's go ahead. Let's keep going.
Oh, am I supposed to talk about that now? Okay, so yes, at the conference last week, we found out that we won both Chapter of the Year and Program of the Year. And in order to win that award, you have to submit a document detailing every single event you've done. All of the metrics have to be included. And you have a nominating panel that, sits down, takes a look at your information, and they make a determination. So out of the 35 plus chapters, we won. And it is the first time that any chapter has won both awards in one conference. So we are the first to do it, not to brag, but it is truly an honor to be a part, as you can see on the screen on the website, be a part of something great. I owe a lot of what I know, what I do, and how I do it to NAHSE. And I'm just happy that this term we were able to win such a prestigious award. We were able to be acknowledged. And I just hope that we continue to put in the work in the years to come.
Well, congratulations on your award. I always say appreciation goes a long way. Don't forget to appreciate.
Oh,
Yes.
and one more thing, one more plug. The reason why we won that award because of the program of the year, but we have a yearly yacht event, and
Yes.
that
Oh gosh, that's right.
event is going to happen on November 2nd in Tampa. We're going to have probably over 100 different healthcare executives throughout the state. One of our major sponsors is HCA, and this is a great way to understand what's happening in healthcare, and people from all over the state and even outside the state come for this particular event.
And keeping in line with our discussion today about health equity, the topic is equitable healthcare. So we are keeping in line with the work that our national headquarters is doing, and continuing to push the discussion forward about how policy, how practice, how progress drives the work that we are trying to do in healthcare. So if you are interested in attending, please RSVP. You can check it out. We should have it on our site fairly shortly, but if not, it is on our LinkedIn. Feel free to register. We are limited spaces right now, so RSVP as soon as possible.
And this is open to everyone in healthcare, correct?
Everyone, and you can enjoy. It's an open bar, free food, a bunch of leaders in healthcare, not only in the state, we actually have other leaders from other chapters that are flying in just for this event. So come out, enjoy, and have a good time.
All right. Well, thank you. Grant, have we left anything else out?
You would know. You would know.
No, I think we've covered it all. But enough said. Health affects everybody. It affects everybody, and to understand what's happening, I wanted to say one thing. This is an alarming fact, but we should be aware of this, and it's a fact that I am not. I was shocked when I first heard it, but it's true. The fourth leading cause of death in the United States is healthcare itself, meaning healthcare delivery, medical errors, sepsis, things of this nature. So going to the hospital itself, you could go in one thing and come out with another. This needs to stop. And then one of the reasons that we get able it to stop is to become more aware, to understand what's happening, to utilize all our different communication tools to begin to lower that gap. That's very, very important. And that's something that I believe strongly in.
Okay, so it sounds like part 2 will be coming up. So I was expecting, some shots from the yacht for sure. I want to see that stuff. And thank you so much, Grant, Dr. Khadijah, Nicholas. I want to call you Nicholas. Nicholas, so glad to have you both. Thank you for sharing and on Newsworthy Stories with Jacqueline Jimenez.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
This transplant is so different. You don't just take one organ out and put another one in. My head has its own characteristics. My cheeks, my nose, my chin, my lips, they all have to be tied together. The blood vessels, nerve endings, the muscles, all of that has to be tied together, obviously in a very intricate way. And so they all don't necessarily get reconnected from the donor to the recipient. It may not fully get reconnected, or it may not fully operate the same as a normal person.
probably the best part of all of it, it's all meant well and for the greater good. So I'm incredibly proud of what he has been doing, and I agree we all should support his foundation and help along in this process.